Good morning. Today we are going to look at some of the myths surrounding Napoleon Bonaparte. Hope you enjoy it.
Okay, firstly, let's address the elephant in the room. So, was Napoleon short? Was he a short guy with a big complex? Let's listen to a couple of contemporary accounts describing his physical appearance. This first one is a Dr. Corvisant in 1802.
His head was big and the skull largely developed. His neck was short and his shoulders broad. His legs were well shaped, his feet were small and well formed. His hand, and he was rather proud of it, was delicate and plump with tapering fingers. His forehead was high and broad, his eyes grey, penetrating and wonderfully mobile. His nose was straight and well shaped. His teeth were fairly good and mouth perfectly modelled, the upper lip slightly drawn down towards the corner of the mouth and the chin slightly prominent. His skin was smooth and his complexion pale, but of a pallor which denoted a good circulation of blood. His very fine chestnut hair, which, until the time of the expedition to Egypt, he had worn long, cut square and covering his ears, was clipped short.
This second account was given by a Captain Ross of the British Royal Navy in 1815. This is after Napoleon's defeat when he was in captivity.
He is fat, rather what we call pot-bellied, and although his leg is well shaped, it is rather clumsy, and his walk appears rather affected, something between a waddle and a swagger, but probably not being used to the motion of a ship might have given him that appearance. He is very sallow, with light grey eyes, and rather thin, greasy-looking brown hair, and altogether a very nasty, priest-like looking fellow. He never gave the smallest trouble to anyone, and every day was the same. He was very communicative, and seemed fond of being asked questions. His manners are by no means good, and his voice very harsh and unpleasing.
Okay, two very different accounts there, and it just shows how important perception is. History is usually written by the victors and from their point of view. There's lots of contemporary accounts out there you can read. Some mention his height, some don't. These two don't mention his height, and I'm trying to make the point that if his height was unusual, they probably would have done. His personal physician records that his height was actually 5'2", but the French way of measuring in the 19th century was different to modern times, so that 5'2" then actually converts to 5'6" to 7 now. So to answer this question, Napoleon Bonaparte was actually at average or slightly above average height, making this myth completely busted.
Okay, let's look at another myth. So did Napoleon convert to Islam? In 1798, when Napoleon successfully invaded Egypt, he needed the support of the local religious leaders. As part of this push to gain support, he released a transcript of a conversation that he had in the Great Pyramid with one of the imams, which read,
"Glory to Allah. There is no other God but God. Muhammad is his prophet, and I am one of his friends."
However, this was pure propaganda, and there's no evidence that conversation actually ever took place.
The Great Sphinx of Egypt. Now in modern times we've never actually seen it with a nose, and this is supposedly due to Napoleon Bonaparte. After his conquest of Egypt in 1798, legend says he told his troops to use the Sphinx as target practice, hence it has no nose. However, this myth is very quickly dismissed. In this drawing by Frederick Ludwig Norden in 1737,
we can see the Sphinx had already lost its nose, and this was some 60 years before Napoleon entered Egypt. Napoleon died on St Helena on May the 5th, 1821, at the age of 51. Eyewitness accounts of his final hours differ somewhat. There's general agreement that he said something about an army, head of the army, France, and my son. 20 years after Napoleon's death, and another witness stepped forward, a General Charles de Montholon. Now, Montholon at the time was in prison after an attempted coup, so can't be seen as a trustworthy witness. All in all, when we sum it up, it's unlikely, Napoleon said Josephine on his deathbed. He was at the time remarried. But having said that, it's certainly plausible. It's one of those things that's lost to history, and we'll probably never know. After his death in 1821, rumours began to circulate. The most popular of these rumours was that Napoleon was poisoned. It was said that during his autopsy they found high levels of arsenic in his hair. Of course, the British denied this. Even if he wasn't poisoned, there was other ways arsenic could have found its way into his body. Through the wallpaper, for example. The bright green colour used at the time in wallpaper was actually made from arsenic. This wallpaper was particularly dangerous to young children and the elderly. But what did his autopsy actually say? It was recorded that Napoleon Bonaparte had died of stomach cancer, not poisoning. There's no doubt that Napoleon Bonaparte is one of history's great characters, and as a result lots of conspiracies and mysteries have sprung up around his life. In this video we've just scratched the surface. I'm not even going to pretend that we've looked into anything in any great detail. There's an insane amount of information out there on Napoleon's life, and well worth looking into if you're interested.